So, I have chosen a 2010 supernatural drama film entitled Uncle Boonmee Who Can Recall His Past Lives, directed by Apichatpong Weerasethakul and based on a book by Buddhist abbot I'm going to butcher this, Sripariyatiweti. The film centers on the last days and life of an elderly farmer. Bunmi, played by Tanapat Sayama, contemplates the reasons for his terminal illness and is reunited with his lost son Boonsong, who returns in a non-human form, and with his late wife Hoi, who returns as a ghost. The film is set deep in the forests of Thailand's Isan region, and the trees, rivers, and caves are captured with a mythic and dreamlike intensity that mirrors the plot. It is not clear what this film is actually about, which will probably turn a lot of viewers off. Yet I thought the characters were compelling and the cinematography was strangely hypnotic. I think the film is essentially a ghost story, but it's not a ghost story that we're used to in Western cinema. It's not really a horror story. The film also seems heavily influenced by Buddhist notions of karma, reincarnation, respect for nature, and the search for enlightenment. So I like this film, but what did you guys think?
Okay, so I'm gonna read some notes that I wrote. Okay, so first of all, this movie was kind of hard for me to find. So when I did find it, I skipped ahead to make sure I was like watching the right thing. And there was just like, because this movie is very slow and like every scene is drawn out for very long. So it was just like 30 seconds of like the Sasquatch standing. And I thought I had like stumbled upon like a jump scare or something. So yeah, that was rough. But so here are some notes I wrote. So when we get the Sasquatch and he meant the son and he mentioned that he mated with a Sasquatch, I wrote bestiality. Are they technically human? Then later I added JK catfish scene. What else did I write? I wrote shot of guy walking into forest lingered for so long. Then later I wrote LOL whole movie. I also, about 2/3 of the way in, sped the movie up to 1.75 speed. It was still too slow, so I watched the rest of the movie at times 3 speed. And I really liked the scenery. I thought it was very pretty. I loved the cave scene. And I liked when he was picturing the future, how he was a Sasquatch. I don't know what that was supposed to mean, but I thought it was cool. I did not like how it was in picture style. So I read about this movie after I watched it because I was like, what the hell did I just watch? And it's like supposed to be filmed in different film styles, each section. So I think that one was supposed to be the documentary style, but I wrote that it was still kind of lame because it was just pictures and I didn't really like that. Like I would have preferred maybe like lingering shots, except the whole movie was a lingering shot. So, it's definitely not a movie that I would watch again, or it would be like a movie that I would have on my to watch list and then never watch. And then like honestly, I was gonna turn it off, but I was like, I need to finish this, so I watched it at times 3 speed for like the last half of the movie. Overall, I don't know, I was kind of bored, but there were some interesting parts of it. I think I liked this more. I don't know. Like I gave them both 3 out of 10. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
I gave both your picks 3 out of 10 on Letterboxd. Like they had different things that I liked, but I was just not engaged with either of them. But yeah, that catfish scene, I was streaming it in the chat and Jock left after the catfish scene and I don't know if he fell asleep or he was like, what the fuck, and left. But
That's my cue.
yeah, it was really strange.
Oh, I'm sorry, Abby. I feel bad that both the films you didn't enjoy. I was hoping at least one of them you would have enjoyed.
I will say also that the princess was very beautiful, even when she was old. I don't know what she was talking about.
Yep, body shaming lasted hundreds of years. Yeah, it was definitely a slow film. I got that, but I didn't actually feel bored. I felt like more relaxed, like you're just kind of like floating through the film, like you're floating down a river. But yeah, I just kind of put it on and watched it, and then kind of like zoned in and out at different points. But I didn't feel like I lost track of the plot because there was no real plot. Or there was a plot. There was a basic plot about a man dying from a terminal illness and just kind of like reconnecting with his family, and then contemplating his life, and then he dies, and then they have a funeral. So it's a pretty basic plot on the surface, but it's just all the asides, the weird, princess catfish scene and the yak scene at the beginning and cave sequence. It just it hints at this deeper narrative or this deeper meaning that's going on below the surface that kind of muddles the viewer. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think, Matt?
Yeah, I probably liked it a little more than Abby. And yeah, they're definitely individual scenes that I really liked. I wish we had more stuff like the dinner conversation, like at the beginning of the film, kind of with the ghost and with his son who's turned into this kind of Yeti Sasquatch style creature. And yeah, and then him talking about the future and stuff, that was a good scene, and the stuff in the cave as well. But yeah, it didn't, because it's kind of so obtuse, it didn't really come together where I feel like I got, as much out of it as maybe the filmmaker wanted me to. A comparison I would make, so I watched a random movie recently because of a performance I liked this year. So Park Chan-wook released a new film this year called Decision to Leave. And the lead actress in that movie is Tang Wei, who's a Chinese actress, who gave in this film one of my favorite performances of the year. So I kind of looked up her old stuff. She came to prominence in Less Caution, which is a fairly well-known international film. But she also did this other movie called Long Day's Journey into Night. And this movie is similar to this Uncle Boonmee, where it's not told exactly linearly. It kind of shows two different timelines, and it's similarly obtuse as to kind of the order of events and really only hints at what exactly is going on. And the ending of the film is a 50-minute one-take shot of him going through a dream sequence, trying to find a woman from his past, who is played by Tang Wei in the film. And so yeah, so I those those two films back to back would be an interesting double feature to me. But I just feel I don't know, I got more out of the Long Day's Journey movie. Whether it's just the visuals and style was more appealing to me. The aesthetic of it was more interesting, or I don't know. I just feel I got maybe a little more emotion out of it, just because kind of it was a clear kind of iteration on a man kind of trying to, who's has some regrets in life and is trying to find a woman from his past. Who maybe gave him life and whatnot, and so yeah. So for this one, a guy kind of reflecting on his past and his wife and stuff like that. But I don't know. I just feel I didn't get enough emotional weight out of it to really draw something from the film.
Yeah, I would say the I don't know. I was reading reviews, and this one reviewer YouTube reviewer also didn't like it, but every other review on Letterboxd was this movie is amazing, da, da, da. And I was I must be missing something or not have the cultural context or something. But the one thing I really liked about this movie was the cinematography. When Hui, I think her name was, the wife, comes, it's kind of wait, did I miss it? Has she always been there? It was I couldn't, it was very subtle. Or at the very end when I forget their names, but the Jen and the nephew, I forget his name, Tong, yeah, they get up to go leave, and it's so smooth that they're still on the bed. That was really smooth, and I liked the filming, except some shots lingered way too long, most shots, but otherwise I was I maybe I'm missing something. I don't know.
That final shot reminded me a lot of David Lynch, where the characters would just see doubles of themselves, and there is no explanation in a way. I just kind of had to accept at a certain point in this film that this isn't a traditional narrative with 3 acts that logically connect to each other. It's just a floating. It almost felt like just different realities just kind of blending together. And it doesn't specifically say it's about reincarnation. Oh, I mean, there's one reference to the character saying, "Oh, I feel like this cave is where I was born," but just the fact that you see all of these different figures that don't seem to have any logical connection, except that they occupy the same movie, just implies this connection. And I think that's kind of what it's getting at, that we human beings try to make sense of things in this logical way, but maybe the different planes of reality, or our spiritual plane versus our physical plane versus the way we think, don't really make a lot of sense. They kind of just float around in like a circle. And I thought, yeah, there is definitely a lot of cultural context that I felt that I was missing, both the idea of reincarnation and the Buddhist theology, but also just the Thai rural setting. It just seemed like it was drawing upon a lot of like Thai folklore around ghosts and monkey ghosts and mating catfishes, and just this kind of mystical elements of this forest that I wasn't familiar with. But also just thinking about it in the context of karma and reincarnation, that kind of gives it some narrative context about why these seemingly random images have been placed together, that it might be the same spirit moving through these different life forms, or that these are the life forms that occupy the forest. So it's almost like the memories of the forest or something. It's hard to make sense of, but it's just, yeah, I think that's what's challenging. I just kind of went with it, but I can totally understand how that would really turn a lot of people off, that, I want something that makes sense that I can connect to, and I'm not connecting to this. I definitely get that.
I did some like very brief Wikipedia research while I was like watching the movie, and after I was watching the movie, just to be like, what didn't I get? And like you said, it was based off of a Buddhist abbot's writing about I think it was an autobiography of some guy, and like I couldn't again, I did not delve super deep into this. It was mostly based off the Wikipedia page, but like there was no page for the actual book. So I'm not sure what the book was, but like originally I think this movie was supposed to be a biography of that guy who like the Buddhist monk or abbot wrote about, and then like this came out instead. So I'm wondering if maybe I read the book, it would give me more context or something. I'm not sure.
I don't think it would. I don't think it actually follows the book very closely. I think it just takes some ideas from the book. Originally, it was part of like a multi-platform art project, which had like exhibitions in art galleries and short films. And this was kind of like the final installment of that art project, which was called Primitive, which dealt a lot with the Isan region near the Laos border, dealt with the folklore there, and dealt kind of like with a lot of the historical upheavals and the traumatic events that have happened there. I mean, it's only given like one line in the film, but the character recalls his involvement in the sort of anti-communist purges in like the 60s. And he thinks, oh, maybe that's the reason why I've got this terminal illness, because of what I did there. Or maybe it's because I've killed so many bugs. Like, it's sort of that Buddhist notion of like all lives are precious. And you could be reincarnated as a bug or as a person who believes in communism. So it's sort of, you need to treat everyone well, or you'll receive some kind of retribution. But yeah, the conflicts with the Lao people, and I thought even that idea of like the border, I thought was interesting. Like the wife gets very anxious about the fact that his doctor is a Lao migrant. She sort of speaks very disparagingly about people from Lao. And I thought that was interesting, this idea that like there's this very fixed border between Lao and Thailand. And we also like borders around our lives and our conceptions of reality. And when those borders start to merge and blend, it can create a lot of anxiety within us.
Yeah, I was really hopeful at the start of this movie because I deal a lot with immigration. I work a lot with immigrants and like asylum seekers and stuff. And it's just like, I was like, oh, are we gonna have this conversation? Like, and I was like, really, I was like, I don't know that much about, I know about the issues in like Myanmar and Bangladesh, but like, I was like, I don't really know anything about Thailand and, these kinds of things. But I was like, ooh, but then it didn't really go anywhere with that. But
no,
my hopes were raised.
Yeah, and I think Laos was a former French colony, and there's a bit of an allusion to that where one of the farmers is speaking French, but they don't really explore it that much. But you did mention in your research, you were saying the filmmaker was kind of using the film as like a homage to different eras of cinema or different types of cinema. And I read that as well.
I mean, we probably read the
Sorry.
same article, but
Yeah.
which I definitely picked up on that. It was like a horror movie when they were in the cave, documentary when he's talking about the future. Like he mentioned like he wanted one to be like really stilted and old fashioned. I'm not sure exactly which one that was because there were
I
several.
think that was the dining scene where it's very like classically staged and then very clearly delivering dialogue. It's not as sort of spontaneous. And I think he refers to the princess sequence as like sort of a costume drama from the 50s or 60s. And even the shots of the jungle, he says, are like basically that's the earliest sort of Thai cinema is like Westerners going there and just filming the jungle and filming the wildlife. So it's kind of this rolling history of Thai cinema.
I mean, I really enjoyed the dinner scene. I like this is something I just pick up on when I watch movies because I really hate what's it called, like shot cut shot, where it's like I'm talking, shot on me, another person's shot on them. So anytime a movie is like doesn't do that, I do pick up on that. So I liked that dinner scene. So maybe this means I like old movies, but I don't watch old movies. But I did like the way it was filmed. I think that was probably my favorite part of the movie, and then I just kind of was bored. But the beginning was very interesting. It didn't have a thread for me to really follow.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't really. It's almost like a series of shorts, like a series of vignettes that don't really follow on. So you get excited by one sequence, but it doesn't actually go anywhere with it, which is frustrating.
Right. It feels like kind of one of those, experimental, like quote unquote video games that are really more of just like a visual journey you go on rather than like, having any like, coordinated gameplay at all. So this film kind of feels like that, where, it's kind of, as you said, a series of vignettes and, exploring some ideas and themes or whatever. But yeah, like when I watch film, I usually like to have some sort of, coordinated story or thesis or something to really grasp onto and follow.
Did you guys have any interpretation of that like sort of future dream sequence where it had the military kind of like rounding up the ghost monkeys and those kids throwing rocks?
Yeah, that was one where I just like felt like I didn't have the cultural or historical knowledge of kind of the communist era of that region like well enough to fully understand that scene.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. Like, probably something to do with, like old values and like tradition, I guess, in general versus like government. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think reading the history, the country sort of alternated between like dictatorships and kind of quasi-democratic governments. But there was a strong military presence in the region because that's where a lot of the communists would kind of retreat to that forest and hide out on the Lao border. And you had a similar thing happening in Indonesia as well. Like there was a lot of communist strongholds in the rural areas, and the governments would come in and kind of run them out or quash them. But yeah, the shots of the military, I think, harkens to that period. But yeah, or maybe also like a clash of the old and the new. The military being this very new presence in Thailand, kind of scenes of them rounding up these kinds of folkloric monsters, dragging them out of the forest, kind of has some kind of symbolic importance, I guess, of old and new in conflict. But I don't know, like, and the forest is this kind of like this home that a lot of characters are trying to return to. Like you see the yak at the beginning trying to return to the forest, and then the farmer grabs him and drags him out. And the shots of Boonmee going deeper and deeper into the forest to find the cave, and the army dragging the monkey ghost out of the forest. I don't know. It's kind of like just this nation in tension between its identities and its histories, maybe. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Like it resonated somewhat with The Dancer, that idea of like the legacy of the communist purges for both these countries from the 60s and how it affects modern day people.